HarperCollins and HarperAudio present The Movement Made Us, A Father, a Son, and the Legacy of a Freedom Ride by David J. Dennis, Jr., in collaboration with David J. Dennis, Sr. Read by Cary, Hite, and Leon Nixon.
Prologue. Us. There's a video of James Baldwin interviewing a stranger with my daddy's face that will one day be my face. The VHS tape of this interview has been in my family for 40 years. The cassette itself is blank, with the exception of a half-faded sticker on it that reads, James Baldwin interviews civil rights workers, 1981. Baldwin himself gave it to my dad, who doesn't recall ever watching it. The tape stayed at my mother's house after the divorce, collecting dust until I started researching my father's life a few years ago. When my mother gave me the video, she told me that she'd shown it to me when I was a child, and I kind of remembered that without remembering the specifics. The interview with Dad comes toward the end. The man whose face appears on the screen above the grainy words, David Dennis, core activist, is my father, but not the one who figures in my memories from childhood. The man in the video, with my daddy's face, was scowling, the lines around his eyes red, his fingers pressed against his temples, and the skin around his jaw drooping. As he talks about the 1964 Freedom Summer, and the murders of his friends, and the way the search for their remains uncovered more mutilated, decapitated, desecrated bodies of long-forgotten and nameless black Mississippians, his nostrils flare, and he looks like he wants to set the world on fire. So many of my favorite times spent with Dad were day trips traveling through Mississippi, watching him deliver speeches at various memorials, anniversaries, celebrations, and funerals. I've sat in rooms while he was being interviewed for documentaries. I'd seen him mourn his friends, cry over them, share his guilt and regrets. I've seen him sad. I've seen him angry. But I'd never seen him look like he did, sitting across the room from James Baldwin. I was raised by Dave Dennis, Sr., the civil rights veteran, the man who spoke about his demons on those trips, the man who worked tirelessly with Bob Moses to reignite their movement throughout my childhood. That was the man I admired, even as he became a father I deserved more from. I thought that the David Dennis behind the podiums, with his fingers to the sky and crying freedom for our future, was the man who emerged from the movement. The Baldwin tape tells a different history and answers a question I never asked. In this grainy video, the stranger dad is lost in his own fury. When he talks to Baldwin, all that's left is a hardness, a calloused, impenetrable husk. The video is one of the only interviews my dad had done from the end of Freedom Summer up until the 1990s, when I was a kid. He'd wrapped himself in a cocoon of survivor's guilt and regret to the point that he would refuse interviews and try to hide from any spotlight his heroism brought. The few interviews he did in the 1980s were combative, short, and full of inaccuracies that come from him simply not giving enough of a damn to care about his answers. The one exception is the interview he did for Eyes on the Prize in 1985, 5 months before my birth. But even that interview was distant and only done because one of the people working on it, Judy Richardson, had been a SNCC worker and, after multiple attempts, finally convinced him to participate in the documentary. When I asked my dad about the man talking to Baldwin, he tells me about his period of insanity, the vaguely detailed lost 1970s and 80s spent running from ghosts, diving in and out of financial despair, drugs, a ruined marriage to the woman who survived the movement with him, a move to Lafayette in southwest Louisiana, a marriage to my mother, and my birth when he was 45 years old. The years that more resemble those of a soldier returning from Vietnam than a hero of American democracy collecting praise as a foundational member of the movement for civil rights. My dad was on his way to another
Sample complete. Ready to continue?